Your Creative Push, episode 102.
It's great. You can sit and you can watch something. You could listen to a podcast. When you actually go and do something, that's where the magic happens.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Mitch Bowler. Mitch is the founder of Pencil Kings, an online professional art teaching institution that provides top-flight instruction at an affordable price to those who are unable to attend traditional art schools. Formerly a 3D technical artist with work experience on top films and game projects, his focus is now on building and growing the Pencil Kings brand to provide art training and support to enrolled artists. And Mitch, I just want to take this opportunity at the top of the show to say thank you, because you are the one that reached out to me to suggest Cinzia Angelini, who is on episode 86, and her amazing project, Mila. And that's just really goes to show why podcasting and just almost the internet in general is so awesome. Like a guy like you will just reach out and be like, hey, have this person on the show, and then just making that one connection. Now I've been on your show and you're being on my show now, and we've just been able to spread a lot of knowledge back and forth to each other. So anyway, thank you for reaching out to me and making that suggestion, man.
Yeah, no problem.
So can you tell us a little bit about Pencil Kings and what it is and what people can expect from it?
Sure. So when I got started, I grew up in rural Canada. So I lived in this village of about 650 people. And
oh, wow.
I always wanted to make video games since the age of 7, and I felt really lonely that my parents couldn't understand what I really wanted to do. My friends were all into whatever 7-year-old kids are into at the time, but I was into video games. So I had my notebooks and my paper, and because we didn't have a computer back at this time, just drawing things out on paper. That's as close as I could get. Right around the time, I think just before Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat would have came out. And so just this feeling of being really alone. And then as I got older, I still knew that I wanted to make video games. So I wanted to go to the San Francisco Academy of Art. I believe that's what it was. And I realized it was going to cost me $40,000 as a Canadian to go to the US, because when you're out of state, I think it costs more. And if you're out of country, it costs even more so. And that killed my dream. So I went to the local university. Sort of, it was what it was. Most of it was just self-taught because I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I'm not sure what the program is like now. But I wanted to create a resource where people could connect with professionals and distill the knowledge, because there's a lot of learning resources out there, but I wanted to do it in a more comprehensive way, and then also bring people together so they could support each other, because I know it's freaking scary to post your work and to have haters. And I've had my fair share of haters. And so it's really a safe and friendly place for people to come and share their work and to grow and progress, and also to get a bit of mentorship to match their career goals up what they're actually doing. Very
cool. And so you have instructional videos and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, there's lots of videos. And then what we really try to do is get people to take action, because it's great. You can sit and you can watch something. You could listen to a podcast, but it's when you actually go and do something, that's where the magic happens. Until you do something, you can have all this knowledge. We all know so much these days because of smartphones and how accessible all this information is. But you actually have to do something for that knowledge to be useful. It can't just be an anecdote that you talk with your friend about. You actually have to do something. So we really try to push people and understand how to motivate people, especially in a non-traditional classroom setting, because everything's done online. So we have students from all over the world. And so it's how do we get these people to push? And that's what we try and help them with.
Absolutely. And yeah, one of my calls to action at the end of every episode is usually, turn off the internet and get to work. Stop listening to podcasts, as much as that doesn't seem to make sense as a podcast host. But yeah, stop reading books and just do the work. What's your number one, kind of piece of advice for people like that just try to absorb tons of knowledge and, like you said, just gain all this information and don't actually put it into action?
So I think recently I'm going through trying to understand fitness. And so I'll just make a correlation here between art or creative things and fitness. So with fitness, there's all this information out there, just so much. And it was really confusing for me. And it was good because it put me back in the shoes of a beginner artist or beginning creative, or maybe you're a creative, but you haven't done something before. So what I'm trying to do now is just take 30 days and figure out what you need to do and make your plan for 30 days. And with your plan, it should be daily habits. So there's so much power that comes from daily habits. Like if you sketch every day for 15 minutes, that can turn into something much longer. So you just set that as your habit that, okay, I want to be better at drawing. So I don't have much time, but I do have 15 minutes a day. That's what I'm going to do for 30 days and see where you're at the end of those 30 days. And don't try and keep being smarter while you're at that. Like 30 days goes by really quickly. So if you just sit down and do something for 30 days, if you want to start a blog, if you write 1,000 words every day, or you want to write a book, there's all kinds of things that you could do, but it's just these daily habits, and those turn into all kinds of things that you can't even tell where it's going to take you in the beginning. You just have to do it and have faith and keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. There's so much power in just starting, That's what I did for the podcast. I just hit record on episode 0 and just went with it. Just said, okay, I'll learn as I go. And I think a lot of people do get that paralysis by analysis. They just think about it too much and they need everything to be perfectly lined up before they even start. And that just makes them never start. So that's really good advice, man.
Yeah, I forget what the quote is, but it goes something like this. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. And so we usually, now what we've started to do, even when we try to be perfect, we realize that things are never quite perfect. There's always a technical glitch. There's always, something gets delayed. So now what we start to do is just say, this is a beta. And, so then it kind of lets us still get it out there, get people using it, which is the most important thing, get some feedback, and then continually improve and iterate on whatever we're developing for our members. And I really like that.
That's super powerful to think of it as a beta version. I never really thought about that before. It's perfect. Takes the pressure off to ship it.
Yeah, definitely.
So you asked me on your show what one of the most powerful things that I've learned. What is one of your standout kind of lessons or stories that you've had from your now 90-ish episodes, I think, of Pencil Kings podcast? Yeah. What's one of the standout lessons that you've learned?
So one of the cool things that there's two things that I refer people back to a lot. And one of them is that you want to stand out. So when I work mainly in visual arts. I know you talk to a bunch of different creatives, but we'll just stick with the visual arts realm.
Sure.
So there's all these artists posting on Instagram and Facebook and getting all these likes whenever, but that's a really crowded space, because everybody's there. Mm-hmm. However, when you go and you post your work in a different niche and you're a visual artist, but you start posting your work in the podcast that we did, the woman was posting in a World War II enthusiast forum, and she was posting her sketches of airplanes, and people were blown away by them. And all of a sudden these commissions started to roll in very easily. Whereas, most people think, publish your things to Instagram, start a blog, put up a YouTube channel, but now you're competing with everyone again. But when you go where the creatives aren't, all of a sudden you stand out like a rock star, and you don't necessarily have to be the quote unquote best artist in the world because you're competing only with yourself. And so that was really powerful, I thought. And I've seen a few examples of people doing that. And it's just a really amazing way where you can get traction extremely quickly.
Yeah, super good advice to niche down. We had Emily New on the show on episode 80, and she just goes to music clubs and paints the artists there, or paints the musicians there, and it's really cool Instagram account of and they don't know that she's doing it. It's a really cool story. It's really cool to niche down like that.
Yeah, it's so powerful because it's hard to get the ball rolling in the beginning. You don't know what to do, but if you start to look at where the competition isn't, it's not that difficult.
I love it. Are there some things that hold you back, maybe from doing the work with the podcast, with Pencil Kings, with your own art on a daily basis with so much going on? Do you have anything that kind of holds you back?
Yeah, definitely. I found when I was working as a professional in the video game industry that because I was doing so much art, or I don't know if you really want to call it art, but it's just the production of art during the day, that at night it's kind of just killed my personal creative habit. Because I was doing art at such a high level for such a long time in the video game space, when I went to do my own artwork, it was never good enough. It was weird. It just took me years to get back to the point of where I was sketching. And now I use a sketchbook as my mouse pad. So I'm always, there's always a paper at the ready. But what I found was that instead of trying to worry about being perfectionist or whatever, I thought about, what did I like about art when I was a kid? Like when I was 7 years old and just cranking, what was that person? What was he inspired by? And he was largely inspired by what was fun. And so I started to think, well, what is fun? And I just started doodling on a page with no expectations. And I think this is the key, no expectations. You just let it flow. And so I started doodling, and it was really bad. And eventually this kind of Pac-Man-y ghost came out of it. And I wrote the word hi on it. And I posted it in the forum because I thought it was, for me, what it was being able to get back to where I could create artwork for myself. And I knew where it came from. It came from a place of fun. And so I really encourage people inside our community when they're stuck. It's like this balance between having fun and building skills. So if you go too much only down the fun route, then you eventually get to a wall where you feel like, hey, why is everyone else's stuff better and mine isn't progressing? And that's when you have to switch gears and go back to skill. But if you only focus on skill and beating yourself up and telling yourself you're not good enough, well, that doesn't seem very good either. So it's sort of like this balance between fun and skill. But I would say the fun should be more, you should weight it more on the fun, because when you're having fun, then you're going to want to put more time into anything, like podcasting, for example. You could look at it if you're starting to get burnt out with podcasting and you're like, man, I don't know. It feels like a grind. I don't want to go and find these new guests. But then if you think, how can I make this more fun? And you find like a sound effect pack or something ridiculous. Usually there's a lot of fun in the ridiculous things in life. And you just add those back in, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this is fun again. And people are going to hear that. They're going to hear it in your voice, and you're going to enjoy it more. And there's so many things that can get back to that bliss moment or being in flow or whatever. And yeah, it was just going back and thinking. So when you're in that time when you're stuck or you're not sure what to do, for me, it was looking back, back to when I was a child, like what excited me when I was a kid.
Yeah. And we talked about this on your show a little bit, and as well as before this episode started, is that, that's my favorite part of podcasting is this right now, what's happening with me and you, like to be able to talk about it and stuff like that. And it's all you know what, even finding guests is fun for me. It's the editing, it's the show notes, like all like the secretarial work, which we talked a little bit about how you like to outsource. Could we talk a little bit about the power in that, and being able to take the things that you're either not passionate about or that you aren't good at, and sending that out for somebody else that is passionate about it and is good at doing that, kind of the power of doing that?
Sure. So just a little bit of backstory, I guess, so this makes sense, is that I got my start in professional video games in China. I went to China and just said, I'm going to start an art outsourcing studio, and I did it. People thought I was crazy. My parents thought I would be home in a short amount of time, but I did it for years. And I helped build 3 art studios in China.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. And so I learned a little bit about how to create process, and I got to work under a really great person when I was at Activision. His name's Ricard Lind, and he really helped me understand how to systematize things. So when I created Pencil Kings, I knew that outsourcing is really important because, when you get started, you have to do so many things yourself. But at some point, there's going to be too many things to do. So really what I did was I was doing all this stuff, and I was really overwhelmed. And I created a mind map, which if you're not familiar, you can go online and look up mind map, and you'll understand exactly what it is. You start with a circle in the middle, and you start drawing all these lines and circles off from it, and just listing out all the tasks that I had to do. And then I grouped the tasks by a position. So I think when I did my first one, I had like a writer, project manager, customer support person, and a video editing person, something like that. And I was doing the majority of these tasks. And then I just started to interview and find people to do this. And then I also built up a database of basically recipes on how to do things. So for example, like a podcast, if I was going to outsource myself as a podcast host, I would be like, okay, well, what do you do? Step 1, you prepare. And that includes like checking that your mic's working, turning off Dropbox and Google Drive and any downloading things, and on and on and on. So you're ready to do it. And then, what happens, what questions do you ask during the podcast? And then what happens after the podcast? And then I would make a video to go along with that, so that when I hand it off to somebody, the chance of them getting it wrong is low. But there's so many people who have tried this, because there's the 4-Hour Workweek book, which really popularized outsourcing. And where I see so many people get outsourcing wrong is that they hand it off and they expect it to work on the first go. And if you're lucky and win the lottery, it might, but chances are that it won't. And so for me, I say that on the first time, it's going to fail. On the second time, it's going to be better. And on the third time, that it should be good by the third time. And it's my job to support the person that I've hired to do those tasks. And if I'm just handing it off to them and expect them to rock it on the first go, I know that I'm setting myself up for failure. And maybe in the beginning, there's a bit of ego, like that, yeah, I can't really outsource this. I'm so smart. I'm so valuable that no one can do this like I can, which I guess is sort of true. You know, like we're all unique and we all have our own special abilities, but it's also a mindset that really holds things back. So if you change that and you think, my job is to support this person and their job is to support me. And I have to support them in the beginning a lot because they need to get up to speed from nothing. And even though I think this might be simple, I might have been doing this task for 2 or 5 years or whatever. And so there's, you learn a lot of things over time, just slowly. And when you support that person, they have clear instructions. All of a sudden it's like, wow, I don't have to do that task that I didn't like to do anymore that took up a lot of time. And then you just start, piece by piece creating a new documentation and handing off new things. And it's really unique to whoever, whatever you're doing, for the people listening. But I'm sure there's things that you like to do, and there's things that you don't like to do so much. And I would suggest that if you break down your task, look at which ones are the most painful. Like for me, I know that customer support was really painful because when I would get someone swearing at me, which it's the internet, right? So people are people.
Love to swear.
And that would really crush me for like a week. And to lose a week is, especially when you're trying to get your own business up and going, that's not the way to do it. So, I did it in the beginning and then had somebody to help me because I'm too emotional. I'm too sensitive. And so that really hurts me. I still answer customer support, but it goes through a filter. And our staff has been trained, if somebody's abusive, then you don't deal with those people. You just, get past the issue as quickly as possible. So there's looking at which tasks are the most emotionally draining. And then there's also looking at which tasks take up the biggest amount of your time. And so those two things, you can kind of balance them because if there's a task that takes up, let's say 20 hours of your week, is there a way that you could cut that down to like 1 hour by having somebody do it? Like for example, Youngman, in your podcast, it might be doing the research on the podcast guests. If you like doing the outreach, cool. But somebody could do the research for you and be like, okay, because sometimes you have to dig on people's pages or you have to look on LinkedIn or the stuff is scattered all over the place. And somebody could be doing that to you. And so you just like look at it before you get on your podcast. Like, awesome, man. That used to take me like 30 or 40 minutes per guest, which when you multiply that by the number of guests per week, and then you think per month and per year, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that saved me a month worth of time. Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that would save a lot of time. That is one of I do actually like digging and finding interesting things about guests, but some, especially for this podcast, I love to have guests that don't have anything on, that are kind of doing it for the fun of it. So that's one of the usually I'll have to ask them. I'm like, hey, what would you like me to say about you? Type of thing. But yeah, outsourcing is very powerful. And kind of going along with what you're saying about how, the first time they're going to fail, a lot of times they might actually be succeeding in what you actually instructed them to do, or just succeeding in general, just not succeeding in the way that you want, and to be really patient with that. And maybe if you are thinking about outsourcing and that kind of a failure happens at first, to really not get discouraged and quit with it, and just to kind of keep trying with it.
Yeah, and I even the word outsourcing, just hearing you say it, I feel like when you look at it, if you look at it like this person is part of my team, like
right.
That's really helpful, and it's like an investment that you're making in the long-term viability of your business or your livelihood or whatever it is. But this person is there to help you, and you're here to help them by providing them with a job, which is, it's great. And so having that long-term vision, I think, is really important as well, because once you start freeing up that time, all of a sudden, like, your visions can start to get bigger and bigger, which is cool.
Absolutely. Now, you were saying about how you were kind of, I guess, artistically burnt out when you were working in the video game industry. Do you still have time, or do you not have time with Pencil Kinks to do your kind of own creative projects?
It kind of goes, it ebbs and flows. Like sometimes I'll get really excited and want to do a workshop with everybody. Like right now I'm really excited about children's books, and I would like to go inside the community and say, hey, who's interested in children's books? Let's all come together and get our first book out there. But then there are long stretches where I have my sketchbook beside me, and that's about all that I get in, and I don't participate a lot in the queue for long stretches of time as well, because we have people inside who are, managing the community and helping people interact and helping them with feedback and whatnot. So yeah, it's really just this ebb and flow. But I feel like the work that I do, which is largely like designing the systems that run everything and helping provide guidance and creating web pages and sort of setting the design standards, I think there's a lot of creativity that comes through that, but it's more of a design sense, and it's a lot about writing versus visual art.
Yeah, and just putting out so much content like you do, it adds up, and it is a creative pursuit, I think, and I think podcasting is a creative pursuit as well. So I feel like that is where almost all of my creative resources are going right now.
Yeah, exactly.
However, that's why, I'm thinking more about not outsourcing, but adding members to my team, as you said, and that is just like the thing that makes my heart flutter about doing that is having a little bit of extra time to get back to my writing and get back to everything that I do creatively. So it's nice to be able to open up that time.
Definitely.
What would you say that art, creativity, Pencil Kings, what does it bring to your life?
Well, I feel like if you could picture me right now, it's like I've got this Rubik's Cube in my hands, but it's not a Rubik's Cube. It's like this ancient Egyptian thing, this ancient Egyptian puzzle box. And I'm trying to figure out how it all works, because I have a lot of entrepreneur friends, and they're working in what I would just call it more traditional businesses, like helping people with their sales or various other things. But with Pencil Kings, it's like a hobby / professionally oriented training. And so it's not that people absolutely need Pencil Kings. It's not a need in your life, like you need food or you need a paycheck or you need certain things. It's more of a desire. And so when you have a business that's focused on a creative desire, it's not as easy. I feel like for a lot of people listening can probably relate to how they see that there are other career paths that they could have taken that are far easier than going down the creative path. Way easier. And so it's like this puzzle box, and I'm constantly tweaking and changing and adjusting it to figure out how this thing can work so we can help as many people as possible while still having a viable business and allowing us to have the funds so that our vision can be as big as we want it to be. So that's what it brings to me, is like this puzzle box that some days it's really frustrating trying to figure out how this works, and other days it's really rewarding. But I know that by the time I do figure out what the secret combination of all this stuff is, that it's going to be a very valuable skill that I look forward to bringing to other creatives. And there's like little pieces that I figured out, but it's the whole puzzle that I'm working on. So it's just this constant challenge that's always sitting there. And I feel like it's also a challenge not to be wanting to work on it all the time. So I have to create a clear separation between work life and personal life, because it can really take me over, because it's really all consuming.
And that's the fun thing about it, I think, is that this puzzle box can't quite ever be solved. It can be like very close to being solved, but it's almost like a lifelong thing that you get to kind of tinker with, and that's really the fun part about it, I think.
Yeah.
Before we get to our final push, I was wondering if you have a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you kind of draw in, maybe even video game, that you draw inspiration from, and that maybe we could as well.
Yeah, I feel like somebody has recommended this before, because it's one of the most popular books ever written, and it's called The Alchemist. It's a very short and sweet read. I don't know what to say about it other than that when I looked up list of top books for business people, I think is what I looked up. And Alchemist, I think, was like number 3 or number 5. And if you're in that place where you're not sure what you should do, or you're a little bit unsure about how the future is going to go, I feel it's a really inspiring short read that you'll have some good takeaways from. And one of the takeaways that I had from this book, and this is going to sound a little woo-woo, but I believe that sometimes if you're unsure of your direction, life will give you signs. And so, for example, if you just heard me recommend The Alchemist, if I was sitting in your shoes, I wouldn't read The Alchemist, because I'm like, somebody recommended it, whatever. But if two more people recommend it, so if I hear about it 3 times, then that's a signal that I must do it. I don't think it's directly written that way in the book, but it's just like a life lesson that I took away from it, where I try to pay attention to what life is telling me. And so if people keep saying, "Oh, this book," okay, that book just goes to the top of my list because so many people are talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually read that twice. I read it 2 years ago, and I read it a couple months ago, actually, before I started the podcast. And yeah, it's one of those powerful books that it was a different experience both times, because you can easily relate your own kind of stuff, whatever you have in your mind, like the things that are on your mind, to it, and it will really inspire you to figure out the thing that you're kind of supposed to do. I love that book, and it is a really short read, and I would recommend it as well. So there you go. There's your first 2 recommendations, people. So you only need 1 more. The next time you hear it, you have to immediately order it. But yeah, it's a great one. It is time for the final push, and this is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, that's thinking, maybe I need to get to my life calling, whatever it may be, and just give them your best words of advice and push them into doing it.
Whatever the thing that you want to do is probably not as scary as you think it is. And so one of the exercises that I found really helpful for working through this is to sit with your fear and write out all the worst things that can happen. So really identify with that, and then once you're done writing out your fears, and really make them vivid, go way over the top, go way overboard. So do that first. Then sit, and once you go forward with whatever you're planning to do, write out all the good things that can happen, and really go overboard with the good things that can happen. And what you'll find is that when you do go forward with whatever it is that you're trying to do, reality is going to be somewhere in between these two, and I'm willing to bet that it's going to skew far closer to the good outcome than it is the bad. So you can just sit and feel comfortable that knowing that you're going to be walking down the good path, and that the bad path is, it's there, and you've named it, and now that you've named it, you've taken the power away from it, so you're free to go forward. That's it. That's the best I got.
Wow, that's a powerful idea, man. Yeah, and then you see that it's not that bad, and like you said, you've named it, and you can just identify it as that's the thing. That's the thing that I can either be afraid of or not be afraid of, and just tackle it. I love it. Mitch, thank you, man, so much for coming on the show and giving us that push.
Yeah, no problem.
And you can find Mitch on his website, which is pencilkings.com. Definitely highly recommend going and checking that out. Check out the podcast as well. We will have links to everything we talked about today at yourcreativepush.com/Mitch. So go check it out. Mitch, thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks, Youngman. I really appreciate it.
Wow, that was awesome. Huge thank you to Mitch for coming on the show. Guys, remember the power of calling something a beta version. I think that's such a powerful idea. And it's one of those tricks that we can, play on ourselves, because we need to sometimes. We need to in order to get past those creative blocks. So just call it a beta version. Just call it like a pre-version, and just ship it. Just put it out there. It's going to have bugs. All beta versions do, but actually putting it out there is a way to figure out what those bugs are. And it will alleviate some of the stress that's involved with, spending so much time on a creative project, and just trying to just make it perfect before you put it out there. You can put it out there and move on to something else as you continue to work on your craft, whatever it may be. And one more really powerful idea that Mitch said was, trying to find where the competition isn't, to be the front runner in that particular niche or that particular community. It's finding something that you're pretty good at, and then finding an audience of people that could really appreciate that as well. And being the only person in there, you are the expert now in that space. So sit down and really try to think about places that you can go to try to get your work out there where nobody else is out there. I could actually go on and on about all the really cool things Mitch said, and that's one of the really cool things about this particular episode as I was going back and listening and editing it. I feel like I learned so much more the second time around, and that's why, Mitch is so great and Pencil Kings is so awesome. And I definitely recommend you go check it out. And Mitch was kind enough to give you, your Creative Push listeners, a 20% discount if you head over using our link at yourcreativepush.com/pencilkings. It will take you right to Pencil Kings with that 20% off promo. And you can learn a little bit more about what Pencil Kings has to offer and maybe try it out. It's really important to have a community and also some guidance with your artistic career. So take advantage of that opportunity if it even slightly piques your interest. On Monday's show, we have Edward Westerhuis.
I usually get really anxious about, being an artist is really terrifying because it's not a super straightforward career. You kind of have to make your own way. You have to do all these things. And so the pressure's all on you to kind of create something that's amazing that justifies you spending all this time on it. But if we just take it piecemeal, step by step, I find that you can get there.
Edward is a multidisciplinary artist who moves between a bunch of different art forms, including puppetry, which is really cool, and he has this awesome video that is coming out that I can't wait for you to hear about. It's just so much fun, and you can just tell the joy that he has in the things that he makes. But that is for you on Monday. Hopefully today you're inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. Have a productive day, have a productive weekend, and we will be here for you on Monday if you need the push again. Bye, everybody.